Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So last time we did Whirlwind, that was a couple days ago, so I kind of feel like I've forgotten maybe some of my boredom with Whirlwind. Also, certainly it's a possibility that I think I probably covered all 5 of the first 90s tables in the same day, and so by the time I was at Whirlwind I was fairly tired. Um, but we are definitely still at a sliding scale where I want to say Whirlwind is an average table, but in reality, compared to some of the worst games of the 80s, 70s, and 60s, Whirlwind probably is still in the top 20% of tables. Today we're looking at Bride of Pinbot, the sequel to Pinbot um, from 1991.
My God, she's alive!
Now, this is going to be a funny point because this would be Pinbot is probably the only table out there that we've seen so far that kind of has uh, a kind of sexy sex sells mentality, but not that much. You see this Pinbot, this robot that even for 1990s really wouldn't be that titillating. It is more bizarre H.R. Giger style artwork than anything else. Um, but the first table was more about the male Pinbot, uh, and now this is going to be a spiritual successor. Although, when we actually look at the table, it's going to feel very, very different from the original Pinbot, which is fair because it would be kind of boring to just remake the exact same table. Although that's probably what they should have done, is they should have just made Bride of Pinbot slightly varied from the original Pinbot. The machine Bride of Pinbot from 1991, from the inventive mind of Python Angelo, and will with able assistance of John Trudeau and software by Brian Eddy. I suppose this is also a point where I imagine a decent number of electromechanical designers of pinball tables were also the people in charge of figuring out how to make the electromechanical elements work. And now that they've gone to solid state tables, it's much more about programming. And certainly, you would need a whole new generation of completely different skill setted people to program a pinball table to make it work particularly well. Um, this is the second in the very successful Pinbot trilogy of tables. This time it's Pinbot's bride who takes center stage with a dramatic quest to bring the bride to life, with a sequence of shots up the shuttle ramp to first give her speech, then a dazzling, heart-beating grand finale with a chance to join the Billionaires Club, the largest single scoring feature in pinball history. Approximately 8,100 units of this table were made. Alright, so do we have program menu? No. So we can see the shuttle ramp on the left. We can see a center lane shot. We can see a ramp slightly to the right of the ramp on the left that loops, I think, around to a ramp that is to the left of the center of the shuttle ramp. There is a ramp directly in the middle that seems to loop back to the right in lane. And then to the right of that, there are some spinners. This is one of those tables where every single angle is going to end up sending you either on a loop around or a ramp. Uh, it has to be said, though, the drawing Bride of Pinbot's mouth open looks fairly lewd. Like, there's really no way to get around that. It does look lewd, and you're going to be putting pinball in her mouth, whereas in Pinbot originally you were uh, putting 2 pinballs in the eyes of Pinbot, and there was that whole raising and lowering ramp, which is funny because we just a couple episodes saw Phantom of the Opera, which had a raising and lowering section. There's no color mixing from the looks of it on this table, like the original table. If there is, they've moved all the targets in a weird way instead of making a matrix. I don't know immediately how you're going to start multi-ball here. There's an upper playfield. There was an upper playfield in Pinbot, but honestly, that was kind of barely used. I don't see a spin out skill shot. So instead, I see these flickering black elements, which I don't know if those are supposed to just be black spinners or if the game is just glitched and it's not rendering the imagery correctly. Yeah, they might be little platforms that the ball can fall down under. I wish I could look at the table. And Pinbot itself is not a table that was particularly complicated, and now that this feels like they've at least visually overcomplicated it. I don't know if there's any top lane shots. This is another Williams table, although I'm not sure it's a Williams table with the yellow Williams flippers that are typically weak. This would have been a table certainly that could have been called almost anything. You could have just called it Android instead, but they put the Pinbot name on it. And see, here they're depicting Pinbot in a different fashion than what I expected him to look like. And the idea of getting billions of points is kind of just ridiculous. They do have different phases of her eyes and her face and becoming human, but I don't think that really happens unless that's on the backboard at a point we wouldn't even ever be able to see it. Let's see, can we even do 5 balls? Nope. So, activate the bride's optics, earn extra ball, achieve the first jet level, score 200k, and spin the small wheel. I wonder if the space shuttle also is here because John Trudeau worked on space shuttle, because that is kind of out of line with the rest of this. Yeah, so those are drops basically, so you have to hit it with power to get there. And yeah, these are Williams, the yellow Williams flippers, which is, thank goodness for that. I A, didn't like the look of the Williams flippers, and B, I didn't like the way they played. And it's kind of weird that the color might affect whether or not it's a good flipper or not, but it kind of does. So I think I want that camera angle, but in almost every table now, I'm having to go through this. So it makes it seem like almost any shot is a skill shot when you launch. The sound effects do seem to feel more modern. That was the 200k skill shot. So we've just activated the voice.
I can speak.
Oh no.
Oh, her face does change. That's cool. The whole thing rotates. See, that's a cool thing, but you pretty much wouldn't even see that until you'd already played the table, so it's not a good attract. Well, let's set the skin back and play again. Notice I got 2 achievements, 2 standard goals just on that first table without even knowing what I was doing or warming up. Yeah, I can already feel these outlanes are gonna be pretty terrible. if there is a goal that involves lighting up everything, I'm not really sure how you'd pull that off.
Get extra ball.
We've got 2 standing targets on the right, and that's pretty much it.
I can speak.
They're basically making a joke that Pinbot didn't want his bride to speak, which might be a little sexist, or it might be an indication of something else. This could be that Pinbot is building a robot for himself that is more advanced than himself. This would just be Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster and Bride of Frankenstein's monster. I guess that does ruin the movie, that if Frankenstein was the name of the doctor, and then the other, and then Bride of Frankenstein would be the bride of the doctor, not the bride of the monster. I don't know what the skill shot. Oh. So this is where the multi-ball starts, I assume. There definitely are points here where you're hitting the edges of ramps, and that would have been helpful. It would have been helpful if there were drop-down targets, something that would score. That's something Funhouse, I think, did a great job with, is making making a lot of the shots feel like they were good shots and not bad shots that just didn't hit anything. So apparently just hitting the jets locks the jets. There must be 3 different gates behind that hat that determine whether or not you can land in the mouth section versus the eye section. I need to figure out a good shot to the right. And it feels like what I would need to do with the left flipper is shoot the ball up to the up to center. That way it would feed back into the in lane like that. Yeah, some of these loops are going in weird places. I'm not going to be able to flip the shot. I imagine what it really is like 3, one gate that just has 3 different ways it goes.
Machine complete and fully operational.
So we start a 2-ball multi-ball. Do we get to start a 3-ball multi-ball? I earned an extra ball, and with that I've done every single thing. I believe this is also the first time I've ever played this table too, so this definitely feels easier than Pinbot. which definitely implies to me that it would have considerably less staying power.
Yes. I'm turning back.
So I lost the ball, so that messed up my progress. When it says small wheel, it means the wheel in the middle of the table. I just realized that. So there must be something that spins a big wheel reward. Come on. Don't die. This is another one of those tables where I'm at like 2 million, 10 million, and I'm not sure I fully feel like I deserve all that. We're still not running into ball saver features. We're still not running into center pegs, or kickbacks. Like the inconsistency of those elements seems really, really strange at this point. I don't think I can hit the skill shot all the way past the top. I think it just hits a wall. So I should just be shooting for the skill shot every time. The highest skill shot. And hitting the small wheel ejects the ball back out the same way it came, which is not ideal. I'd like it to shoot to a different ramp. Notice that the human eyes are very smaller. So I think you are trying to launch the ball back up there to land in the human eyes, or the smaller eyes, but they seem to have set it so that it would be more difficult. I really don't know how you'd take up less space with a square that's gonna spin like that. That's kind of the problem, is that it is just taking up a ridiculous amount of space on the table, and you've kind of got to put it full center. And see, that put me at the second high score, with 1 billion being the main high score. I kind of feel like you only get 1 billion once per table too. So we're now looking for a loop combo, score the jackpot, score 600,000 points from the Pinbot value, complete the Bide's Metamorphosis, and score the 1 billion point shot. Which I'm not sure I need any instruction on any of that. I would say you even in the original Pinbot, you would have an issue, certainly, with the spin out and the skill shot being the only thing you can really target, where ideally in a lot of other tables you have a skill shot, but you also have a full power shot that will get you somewhere nice or do something interesting at least. There's far too many loops on this table. You could easily remove both loops and save yourself some space. I could do for some drop-down targets or standing targets. I could do for... We've been seeing a lot of trapdoors things on tables. So that gimmick could have been done. Emulating the wheel from Cyclone. What is it? The circus one without having the wheel on the backboard is not particularly interesting. And I suppose there's been plenty of tables that have had reward wheels. That ball managed to get back into the plunger lane. I don't know if it was supposed to be able to do that or not, but it did it. I feel like the music could have been a little bit better, but most importantly, you needed to have Pinbot, Rydo Pinbot talking always. Like, at the very least, make it so you activate her ability to speak fairly quickly. Even quicker than this. Like a first skill shot should have been I can speak, or honestly, it should have been as you launch the first ball, she should say I can speak, and then you start to get some feedback of shoot the shuttle, shoot the ramps. We get this kind of almost antagonist versus protagonist feel between Pinbot and Rydo Pinbot, so maybe you'd have Pinbot going in his robotic voice going, no, don't shoot. Don't make that shot, where Rydo Pinbot is saying do, yes do, and then the two of them could argue it out. And the real genius would be to have it where Pinbot was telling you to shoot one way and Rydo Pinbot was telling you to shoot another way, and both were different paths for scoring, so there were dual challenges always running. Well, I assume Pinbot is saying, oh no. He could be saying, oh wow. And his messed up low quality audio could be just confusing me. Suppose that is a possibility. There's been plenty of times where old lower quality audio is easily misunderstood. Just doing like a full figure 8 of loops here. That clearly is oh no. Although this table might also be oddly progressive for pinball at this rate, because at least they have a female voice character making almost all the sounds on the table. You can feel the Xbox One controller rumbling as the balls drain. You can see they even had to put a gate on some of these shots, some of these ramps, so the ball is less likely to drain down the center. I guess it is kind of almost a catch-22 for a lot of tables, where I can complain about the lower playfield and the mid playfield being empty, or I can complain about it being far too busy. And yeah, the mid playfield here is still fairly empty, but they make up for that with the massive amount of space that the upper playfield, like the entire top half of the table, is just crammed full of stuff. it's a poor balance between open area where the ball could actually fling, which means that the ball really can't gain any wild momentum. You are on a very deep level controlling the direction that the ball will go as soon as you put it in a ramp, or even locking it into a small bumper area. You're still very much controlling where the ball can go. So it becomes an argument about some tables being very permissive and some tables being very, very controlling. I feel like this table in particular probably would have glitched a lot as far as what it was supposed to do. See, that would have been another case where the ball saver would have been appreciated for the multi-ball at the very least. This is a table that still highlights a lot of the problems that a lot of older tables had, that they just don't have that for that general thought. That they're just not generous when success is nearby. Well, ideally you'd want games to be easier as you put more time into them and as you succeeded. It seems like every time I do a skill shot, which can be more than 3 times, I'm getting a multiplier for the skill shot, but that seems to be the only bonus multiplier on the table. Probably should take a moment just to read the instructions on the wizard goals. So it's a matter of this zigzag shot. Like that zigzag power lane seems to either have a gate on it that sometimes goes to the in lane, or it just doesn't care. And it just sometimes will go to the launcher. Which we've seen that gimmick done in different ways a couple other times. That's not particularly interesting. So loop combos. Loops are completed by shooting the left lane, right lane, and heart in quick succession. By completing 4 loops awards a 4 loop combo. After each loop combo requires an extra loop. Okay. 9 loop combos up to 2 million. If you've completed 10 loop combo, you collect the backdoor billion, which scores your billion points. Okay. What is the billion point shot? Once you've completed the bride's metamorphosis, try to shoot both balls back into her face again. Shooting the first ball back to the bride's face increases her pulse, which scores 250,000 and locks the ball. Shooting the second ball in the bride's face spins the big wheel, which gives a random reward. Seems to be the only time you get the big wheel at this point. Big wheel can award a special extra ball. It's funny they call it a special, but it's just an extra ball. I guess because you could program it to not be an extra ball. Points range from 1 million to 50 million. Or light the 1 billion point shot. When 1 billion point is lit, you have 12 seconds to shoot the heart ramp to score a billion point value. Each time you manage to shoot both balls into the bride's face after metamorphosis, it will spin the big wheel again. Once you lose the 2 balls, shooting the bride's face will return it to the start of phase 1, where you must begin the process again. The idea here that you're turning her into a human is kind of weird in itself, and that's where android would make a lot more sense than bride of Pinbot. You'd assume Pinbot would just want a robotic bride, not a humanoid, or a robot turned it to look like a human. So shoot through the right loop, scoring a flashing value here. Each time you complete the right loop, the value increases. The values for the right loop are set on a timer that lasts about 8 seconds. So if you don't shoot the right loop before the timer expires, it reverts to previous value. If the value is at the maximum when timer expires, then it resets the lowest value. Values go up and up and up, advancing to the maximum. Also lights jackpot on the left lane for about 17 seconds. Shoot the left lane within the time limit. Jackpot starts at $1 million. This is a crazy jackpot because it seems to have nothing to do with multiball. At the end of the ball, the number of loops complete is multiplied by 10,000 at the end of the ball bonus. Okay. So just hit that ramp. Get really good at hitting that ramp. Each time you shoot the shuttle, the ball will go into the Pinbot field. And this is basically the only way we can even see the table. And that's Pinbot in the background on that upper playfield, and I didn't even see it. Which awards and advances the Pinbot value. First time you shoot the Pinbot field, it scores 100,000 a second, 200,000, third, 300,000. If you complete a fourth, fifth, and sixth time, the seventh time scores 600,000. It doesn't seem like you actually have to hit the hole in the center. That is basically just a concept from the first table that could have been left on the cutting room floor. And then the two different ways that the ball can drain out from that top section doesn't really accomplish much. That's easily something that you would just remove completely from the table because that is taking up a lot of space. Okay, is there anything more to consider ourselves with? Shoot the shuttle ramp, he'll send it to the playfield, which advances the award. When the shuttle ramp is not lit, shooting it will send the ball to the bride's face. Shuttle ramp is lit at the start of each game. The first time you shoot the ball to the bride's face, the ball will lock in her mouth and activate her vocal circuits. This completes phase 1, scores 250,000, turns the bride's face to reveal 2 empty eye sockets. At that point, the shuttle ramp relights, sending it to the playfield. Next shot after that will send the ball to the bride's face again. Second time you shoot the ball to the bride's face, the ball will land in one of her eye sockets. This activates her optics. Scores 250,000 and starts a new ball plunger. Third time you shoot the ball in the face, the ball will land in the other eye socket, which activates her optics. And it scores 500,000. This completes phase 2, starts multiball with 2 balls and turns her face again. During multiball, shoot the left lane to score a power charge. This value starts at 100,000 and increases by 100,000 each shot up to 1 million. All scoring on the playfield is doubled during multiball, which I knew some tables have done that, but not as many as I would have thought could have done that. Your goal now is to shoot both balls back to the bride's face to complete her metamorphosis into a human. And you would think when you complete the metamorphosis on the table that it should just lock into that state. And that would be kind of boring for pinball to not be able to reset something. But storyline wise, it would make sense. But it won't do that, obviously. When you shoot the first ball to her face, you'll give her a human influx, which scores 250,000 and locks the ball. When you shoot the second ball to her face, you'll complete the bride's metamorphosis into a human and score 750,000. Both balls are then released and multiball continues. Once you've completed the bride's metamorphosis, try to shoot both balls back to her face again. Shooting the first ball to the bride's face increases her pulse, which scores and locks the ball. Spins the wheel and gets us to 1 billion. which one billion is still the heart. So some of these wizard goals definitely are in the same vein. You pretty much are going to get this and this in the same game. But I can't help but feel that we are still just kind of lacking some variety here on this table. There was the loop combo that I did that completely unintentionally. I think I want to go back and play Pinbot and just do a full comparison. And then the third table in this is Jackbot, which is basically just doing Pinbot all over again, which is all you really needed to have done to make a sequel to any table. Is, hey, we're gonna take the general shots and the general concepts, and we're going to maybe add a little bit, tweak the angles a little bit. I actually did see a picture as far as how they design these tables, and they seemingly either make them out of clay or wood, from what it looked like. Which that does make sense. Wood and then vacuum forming. See, that was just a jackpot. Way too easy of a jackpot. Yeah, vacuum forming, probably not a big process in making pinballs, but it certainly could be nowadays. Also, 3D printing certainly could be a big factor in making pinball tables. There are, relatively speaking, fairly cheap 3D printers that will make something look like a professionally finished product, whereas the consumer grade and hobbyist grade 3D printers do a decent job, but it's fairly obvious it's been 3D printed. But you can make things that look like it has been injection molded, created, if not better. And there definitely are some 3D printers that will literally do like multiple layers of colors, so they can remove a certain amount of layers and have a fully colored object. And because pinball tables are not at enough of an economy of scale, like if you're going to make a real toy that you're going to sell, you probably would have to make 10 million, a billion of them. That's not going to make sense for a pinball table that's only going to sell maybe 10,000. So all the little toys, all the pieces of plastic, particularly in the prototyping phase, could greatly benefit from 3D printing. I don't know if you could create a system though where you say paid $1,000 to a Williams and they gave you 3D printing files that were like DRM'd in some way, and you could print your own pinball table. There probably is an idea to that, particularly if you approached it from kind of a Lego perspective, where there was a standard pinball table you got, and then the playfield could be changed quite a bit through something like a Lego interface, Lego style interface. But I don't know how you would really pull that off. Actually, I have seen some people try to make something like that, and they've not gotten very far in the concept. I believe it was Element 13 was trying to make a pinball table that was modular, and then Element 13, the people that were working on it, at least one of them, stopped working for Element 13, and that was probably the end of the project. That was really a case where development time was running into the problems of YouTube desire, where being a maker and a YouTuber is hard because you have to basically always show results and always make progress and make a lot of progress, whereas most actual people developing anything or creating anything may spend years in secret working on something. It's funny how the ball falls up to the top there. So what we're looking for is basically one good game. And I really would like to complete the Metamorphosis, but that is also basically doing the most difficult thing on the table. It would probably be easier even now for a company like it wouldn't be Williams, it would be I think it's called Jackrabbit or something like that. One of the current pinball makers, it'd probably be easier for them to 3D print elements and mail them in a monthly subscription box to somebody who had bought a base table. And while the entirety of a table might be 300 pounds, if you could just ship a new play field, that might really work. Like, shipping a new play field probably would only be about 20 pounds. So if every year you got a different play field and they figured out a way to let you pick and place what you want on the play fields. But what you run into is the problem of the holes. Like, every playfield is going to have screw holes and holes where the I did make it to the human influx, but that's as far as I got. So it would be easy enough to make conversion kits for a table. It would be more difficult to get a conversion kit that would work with multiple playfield tables, which is kind of what you would need. And see, like, converting your table every month is kind of crazy. At a certain point, that almost feels like as if you were getting a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle each month in the mail, or each week in the mail, and the table itself would not be completed until like a full year of subscription had happened. And you could fill in any screw holes, certainly, with like screws and pegs and things like that, but those are all things that the pinball would bounce off of. You need a really smooth play field, and it would almost have to be a system where if you made modifications to this monthly monthly change your table subscription, which really would probably be quarterly, in all honesty, because monthly is too much, you would have to give them some way to just epoxy the table each time. And like put the table down in some kind of rig, pour epoxy over it, and let it cure and dry over smoothly and accurately. And that seems to be asking quite a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't a significant amount of people who play pinball who repair pinballs, but still wouldn't feel particularly comfortable like epoxying over their playfield.
Get jackpot.
I can speak.
What you need is some kind of self-healing
Shuttle launch.
rubber or plastic that you can poke a hole into and it would just heal back around it. I'm not sure that there is anything like that that exists. And saved it there, almost drained out. Then it did drain out, darn it. This is another one of those tables where it feels like, yeah, eventually I would get all the wizard goals. Probably would just take me 4 or 5 hours at most. Just gotta get one really lucky game.
Oh no.
What you could do, I suppose, is use magnetics and have a playfield of glass with a monitor under it. That would probably be your smartest move. Let's find Pinbot here in comparison. If that was what you were doing and then magnets just held everything else into place, that would be kind of fine, but they'd have to be so super strong magnets, or you would just have to get very used to opening up your forward top glass and moving things back to where they belong. And it might be very hard, frankly, to even have a monitor with magnets on top of it. What you could do is you could have an acrylic sheet. It's difficult to stop from breaking acrylic, particularly in large sheets. But if you, say, every quarterly got a acrylic sheet sent to you, and that was where you screwed in the components down to this acrylic top tabletop. And then below that was a monitor that displayed everything. Then it would just be replacing the acrylic sheet and not replacing the entire monitor. And that would let a simple software update all of this. So here we are at Pinbot. We have a score multiplier, and we have a goal of moving closer to the sun. You have this big grid. You have a lot more standing targets. You have this long shot. You have side targets here and that duplicate, I believe, these targets, if I recall correctly. Slightly more difficult shots to drain into the outlane. You just have one ramp. There's a very short ramp here, and then you have the Bride of Pinbot shown in here. So she was a concept that had already existed, and they put enough pegs here to at least experiment with the idea of a pachinko concept, which I don't think it really worked. And then the ball can drain back into the alley lane. It shoots up into the shuttle spinner here, which is much better of an idea for the shuttle. And then there is a rising visor that's not actually a ramp. And you can see there's like aliens or astronauts in Pinbot. So Pinbot himself is supposed to be like this giant NASA robot, I suppose. And I guess the blue and red arm depiction is on the backboard too, although I don't really see the blue and red arms. I guess they are depicted there. This is a considerably more simplistic table, and because of that, it is a lot more interesting of a table, I think, to play. Like, and there's definitely room for improvements in a few places, but just kind of knowing that you can hit anywhere and you're not going to bump into something and drain directly into the outlane. There is a center peg on this table, which there isn't in Bride of Pinbot. You're getting definitely older quality audio. I am also highlighting you can drain the ball fairly quickly on both tables. But yeah, they definitely dropped some concepts in favor of focusing on the bride, and they probably shouldn't have dropped that. It definitely feels like a table like this is much more deliberate with every shot. These might be slightly weaker. Slightly weaker Williams flippers, which they're white also, so I guess that's probably why the Bride of Pinbot tables are white. I get one good shot, and that moved me forward to opening the visor, whereas on Bride of Pinbot you have to get at least 2 shots before you can lock the eyes. And in this table, Pinbot is immediately talking, so they didn't add a whole extra step. Pinbot doesn't ever transform into a human. True, but notice how I'm getting that skill shot probably too often. There might be some middle ground between a table like this, where the ball is potentially going into the upper and middle playfield a lot and barely hitting anything, and Bride of Pinbot, where if you make the ball go up to the middle anything, it will hit a ramp, and that ramp will inevitably cause it to hit something. And then the goal here is just to lock the eyeballs. And hit that ramp, I imagine. remember, there's a whole goal on top of this, though, on top of the multi-ball, where you have something different you can be targeting, which is to move forward in the planets and increase the score multiplier and increase the loot value. There, I just got a wizard goal on the table I'm not even supposed to be playing. That's kind of a great example of a ball where I did considerably less, but felt like I accomplished considerably more. Whereas on Rydo Pinbot, I would have gone through a lot more loops and maybe scored higher points, but points with the power creep, point creep that happens in pinball have kind of lost their meaning. They often are now just feeling kind of like participation awards, which thank goodness that concept hadn't come into the common understanding when pinball was happening. Otherwise people would have realized that that was exactly what was going on, is that you were getting 1 million, 2 million points just for participating. And yeah, there's definitely some ego stroking that is nice about pinball, but it can get a little crazy. And see, 1 million points on Pinbot feels way more earned than 10 million points on Rydo Pinbot. So you almost have an argument. Oh, I haven't even gotten to Jupiter yet. That the spirit of pinball is being... Apparently I have a Hall of Fame score of 2, which means I probably haven't done very well at all. Unless you literally only get a Hall of Fame score increase for multi-balls or something. Yeah, I don't know what the Hall of Fame score means, nor do I know what it would really do for you or how to increase it. It feels like there should be some generic instruction somewhere in Pinball Arcade to explain that. So this left equivalent that gives you a small wheel should have been the thing that would have advanced you to a new area. And if it wasn't going to be just to the sun from Pluto, then it could have been like all the moons around Jupiter or some other astrological bodies, a collection of bodies, or it could have been made up things. I don't think it would have been that crazy to make up some fake planets and have her fly around. Or you just change the goal to get to Earth instead of the sun. There are definitely some modifications I could see making to a table like this, just to enlarge the bumpers in the out lanes, increase your odds of the ball not drowning to the out lane, or just adding kickbacks. And even though pinball is incredibly gimmick based, not that much changes on the lower part of it. You usually have 2 flippers. You usually have kickbacks and center pegs and ball saver features. You almost always have the ball drain to the middle bottom of the table, and you almost always have just 1 plunger on the right. course, if you were going to make a modular pinball table that wasn't just all digital, then you probably would want to make a wide body table. That way you could always build inward. I could even see just having the table be a little bit wider, a little bit longer than is standard always, so there's plenty of room. You would have to also think about just storage in general. If every quarter you got a different play field, then you would have to be able to stack those play fields either inside the cabinet or in the backboard. Backboards probably wouldn't have to change too much. You would basically just have a computer screen with some kind of USB connector at the top, and then USB gadgets such as a fan or a talking skeleton head or whatever could be plugged in. Well, this is also a table that I kind of don't want to put down because I'm so close to getting all the wizard goals. Although the big one would be accomplishing the metamorphosis. Clearly, one of the rewards that should be on the small wheel and is missing is moving her forward. Move metamorphosis forward one stage. But I don't think they can do that in some stages because you need the balls to actually be locked. Which really goes to show they didn't think it all the way through. It'd be very, very nice to have a second way to move towards multiball, or have a quick multiball. These aren't the weakest flippers I've had, but that clearly is a very sharp angle that we're going for. It took me like 3 different tries to get up that shuttle shot. I guess the shuttle on this table probably isn't a reference to the shuttle pinball table. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it originally was. At a certain point it becomes a reference to a reference, at most.
I can speak.
See, in that first scenario, it just locks the ball for a second so you can watch the screen spin. After that point, you can like on this point, moving this forward would be hard because it has to lock an eyeball. But you could fix that simply by having some extra trapped balls always at the top. That would require a auto launcher or some underground mechanics to make sure that there always are a couple extra balls at the top. But that's not impossible to do. I think it is also worth mentioning that
Machine complete and fully operational.
there is some kind of lewd sounding sound effects.
I feel strange.
That the Rydo Pinbot makes.
I'm losing it.
Yeah, the yes, yes. If there was one more yes there, that would potentially be obscene by 1991 standards. Although also in 1991 there was a lot of people and a lot of pushback on that too, so there was no consistency. Ironically, in 2021, you would probably get people complaining about this just being called Bride of Pinbot instead of giving her an actual name. Which, that's one of the things about like Egyptian culture, I believe, is that they don't even name their mothers when talking about her for fear of somebody cursing her name. So they'll refer to the mother as the mother of the firstborn son, which is just total insanity. Of the firstborn son's name. At least that's what I've heard. I could be wrong about that. Let's see if we can... Nope, we don't even have pro versions, so we couldn't even cheat if we wanted to. Not that it would really help on this table, because every single shot is going up a ramp anyways, and the ball control. I do wonder if maybe ball control would work on this table, on this Pinball Arcade a lot more, if I lowered the frame rate or lowered the resolution. It could be that it's just programmed very poorly, and a modern RTX 2080 is so overpowered that the physics are wrong with the ball control. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody saw these videos and said, actually, the table is playing twice as fast as it should, and the ball is moving twice as fast as it should, and I just didn't notice it, because I often will watch YouTube videos at double speed. I can't even really stand to listen to people talk because they have such long pauses that I recognize. Maybe I have like a hypothalamus or something that causes that. I don't know, but it hasn't been a problem yet. But yeah. And ironically, that means even my own footage would be incredibly bad sounding to me at regular speed. Like, I definitely have pauses and long breaks in between some statements. So I would recommend, even for my own contents, to watch it at double speed. I don't think YouTube punishes people for watching things at double speed. If anything, it might help YouTubers for you to watch more of their content at double speed. Man, getting up that shot is just near impossible. They've done something with that gate in particular. So there clearly was some quality of life or quality assurance testing that happened on this table that said the ramp to the right of the center ramp was draining way too often, which is kind of crazy to say because there's so many other points where the ball drains fairly often too. But it does seem like the gate always stops it so that it falls to the right to make sure it hits the right flipper. Well, I think I'm doing fine here. Let's check the leaderboards and see. Overall, we've got 230 billion people, and then some non-liars, I imagine, at 40 billion. 40 billion seems reasonable when you can get 1 billion. And that's all time. Weekly, we've just got 2 billion people, which for the week playing this on a Tuesday, I bet I am somewhere, yeah, rank 44. Not too bad. Rank 44 at 18 million points. If I scored 1 billion, the 1 billion shot, I then would jump up to a weekly score of well, I suppose I would jump up to the 4th place by Tuesday. Interesting. 307th of the month, which I'm playing on the end of the month, the 30th day, and then overall 90,574. And then our goals would have been to just hit that same ramp over and over again. Like every single one of these last things mostly resolves around the idea of hitting the shuttle ramp. Just over and over and over again. Like, doesn't matter what else you do, just keep the ball in play, hit the shuttle ramp dozens and dozens of times. Alright, well, I'm not particularly amazed by Rydo Pinbot, which does kind of suck because I would put it much like Cyclone. I'm gonna favorite it. Did I favorite Whirlwind? Nope, I'm gonna favorite that one too. Like, I'm not super disappointed like I was with Dr. Dude or what, I don't even know what this is, and Phantom of the Opera. Those are relatively bad tables, but by 90s standards, which the standards are going up, so they're not actually that bad. Diner is mediocre table. Whirlwind is better than Diner. Rydo Pinbot, I think, is slightly more interesting than Whirlwind, but not by much. So unless Cactus Jacks or class of 1812 catches my interest, my next big focus is Terminator 2 and Addams Family. And then we might run into a few that are boring, and then we might hit Doctor Who and Judge Dredd and Last Action Hero. These licensed ones are intriguing to say the least, but it also might be that the licensed ones aren't that good. And there's still plenty of opportunity here that any of these tables that I don't even recognize might actually be tables I have played and actually appreciate quite a bit. And let's see, I wanted to see if we look at Space Shuttle here. Space Shuttle did come out before Pinbot. Did not mean to start a game. Space Shuttle is designed by Barry Osler and Joe Kaminkow. And is it a Williams table? And see, Space Shuttle is literally just focusing on Space Shuttle, so yeah, it is a Williams table with white flippers. So it would have made a lot of sense for Space Shuttle to come out, and then for Pinbot to have a reference to Space Shuttle. There's this kind of Williams cinematic pinball universe that's happening here, because then also Pinbot is mentioned. Like, Pinbot makes a reference to Space Shuttle, Taxi makes a reference to Pinbot, Diner makes a reference back to Pinbot. Williams was definitely living off of Pinbot more than any of its other tables in that middle point. I suppose if we tried to sort this by manufacturer, it would be nice if they were chronological also instead of alphabetical. That's why you need second filters. So yeah, you I guess we'll have to keep an eye out to see if any of these other tables make references, because they have Black Knight and Black Knight 2000. There could have been references to that. High Speed Getaway is probably a sequel in a sort to a spiritual sequel to High Speed. Funhouse, I believe, is what that is, and so you'd think there'd be references to Funhouse later on. Some of these not so interesting, though, like the F-14 special, if that was or Firepower. Some of those ones where you were flying jets aren't super appealing to me. Is this Medieval Madness? No, it has to be something with an S. Star Trek The Next Generation, of course. Looking forward to that table. Yep, I wish I could read these icons better. Well, I guess there's nothing else really to say. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.